Hello, guys. My name is Pedro, and welcome to the new episode of Layer Explorer. This episode is going to be a little bit different, a little bit spicy. A little bit. We're going to spice things up. I don't want you guys to take this background thing for granted. So we're going to try something a little bit different. And today's guest is Daniel Rodriguez. He's going to be doing our first character design related episode, and yeah, this is exciting. Like, I've never done a character design episode. This is episode number 6. We finished the first 5 that were like more like the learning curve. I think things are getting better slowly at each episode. I think this is my first episode with a mic. I feel that this conversation with Danny really took me by surprise because I really wasn't expecting this way of getting to a final design. That really took me by surprise, and I think that's a little bit clear in the interview. I never thought that it would take so many layers to design a character and so many iterations, and the way Danny approaches it all and how organic it is. And I think it comes from being from a background of maybe more traditional approach to art. So yeah, I thought I was gonna get an episode that was gonna be we're just gonna check some layers and see how you layer things, but ended up being presented to like this brand new approach to design and character design that I really wasn't expecting. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, and let's go to the interview. Hello, everyone. I'm here in a new episode of Layer Explorer with a good friend of mine. I know him as Danny, but I guess I should present you as Daniel Rodriguez.
Hi, everyone. Daniel Rodriguez is just my full name, but Dani is what I prefer to be called by friends and so on.
So Daniel Rodriguez is your full name. You only have 2 names.
Well, no, I'm Spanish, so I have 2 surnames. It's the same in Portugal, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I just use my first surname because it makes it easier. Otherwise, it's just confusing because most countries don't have that. So.
Okay. Because I would expect the same. I have 4 names, and I was expect like people in Spain to have a similar like big like names approach. But okay, so Layer Explorer. This is the place where I get to unpeel the Photoshop file of artists that I admire, that I love. And Danny is definitely one of them. His character designs are absolutely incredible. I met him, we worked together for, I think, maybe like a year, a little bit less than a year when I was
just about that. Yeah, it was. I mean, actually, we didn't work together in the same office for that long. It was just for a couple of months because then COVID started and
yeah.
But yeah, we clicked, like we became really good.
We definitely partied together. That's for sure.
We were doing that. Yeah.
But yeah, so do you wanna tell us a little bit about yourself? What have you been up to? How was your?
I am a character designer. I mean, I've just been doing that for the last 5 years. Where to start? I don't know. I mean, so my first job was that one in Brownback where I met you. Then afterwards, so I stayed in Brownback for 3 years. And I worked in different children's shows there. And it wasn't just like characters I was designing, I was doing props as well, mostly. And then I got to work in a movie for a couple of years for a South African studio called Sunrise. That movie hasn't been released yet. It'll be released next year. But yeah, that's the experience that I have. And before that, I was studying for many years. So I did fine arts and I did a degree in illustration as well. And then I took a master's in character design in Madrid. And after that, I got to work in animation, which is something that I've always loved, so.
Amazing. But I remember you mentioning that you also still, even though you are in the industry, you still do a lot of courses, you still do a lot of mentorship, a lot of exercises. You were showing me the exercises that like we would do at Brown Bag like monthly of like character design or background art.
Yeah, sure. I mean, because it's not only a profession, right? It's like, it's the same for all of us. Like it's our passion, So you always strive to get better and learn from those artists that you admire. So I do take courses frequently whenever I have time. Then I kind of regret it after because I'm like, make myself too busy and I can't cope with everything. But I just recently, the job with Lorcan is really good actually because it gives you like a lot of free time. So I just took a course with Luis Thomas. I don't know if you know him.
I'm really bad at names.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. He's also a children's book Books Illustrator. Yeah, I recommend that course actually if anyone wants to check it out. But I did that for it ran for 10 weeks, and it was mostly for character design and illustration. So that's the last thing I've done. But yeah, I mean, you know, you scroll down Instagram and you see, yeah, those artists that you admire offering a course, and I'm like, sure, man, like I want to do it, you know.
And you also work with a lot of different medias, right? You also like work with pencil, you work digitally, sometimes you mix both, or...
So, I mean, I started my training traditionally. As I told you earlier, I did fine arts. So I've always liked traditional better, actually. Like the only reason I got to work in digital was because it's like a requirement in the industry. So it was like that year prior to getting my job in Brown Bag, I started doing digital, it wasn't a Wacom, it was like a Huion, the first one that I got, because it was a little cheaper. And then, I remember this, like when I got my first job in Brown Bag, I was very inexperienced, especially with digital media. So I struggled a little bit at the beginning, you know. One of the things I remember is that everyone there was super nice and very patient with me, and I really appreciate that, because the first few months were really rough, you know, because I was struggling just to, especially with painting, you know, and color and everything. But eventually I found a way of doing this that worked for me, and it felt more organic, like if you were using traditional media. So,
okay, so we have our character designs here. Can you give us a little bit of context to this?
Sure thing. So, I mean, just over the last few months, I've been working with two friends here in Athens, where I stay. And we were planning on making like a 3-minute animation. So we are still working on that. And I was designing the characters for it. And it's just like a bunch of dancers in space, you know, in outer space. And one of the characters we thought would be funny to make was like an Elvis. So yeah, I was just trying to mix like that aesthetic of like Elvis with a little bit with space suits kind of thing. So I was just making some options for us to discuss and so on.
So this is part of a film, you say, like a part of a short film?
Yeah, not a short film, but more like a 3-minute animated thing, you know. It's like a clip of these guys dancing. Yeah, so there's this character and there's another 2 characters.
Amazing. Okay. Amazing. This is very exciting. Are you working like with a bigger team, or just like a group of friends, or just with another person?
It is just the 3 of us. And as a matter of fact, if you wanted to join us at some point in the future, if we do something else, you know, like it'd be cool to have you, you know. So we are open to collaborating with other artists. Like this is just an initiative that we've come up with due to the current situation in the industry where there's not much work. So we're just trying to make our own stuff, you know, and just like to have some fun, you know, among friends. And
yeah, I think it's one of the things I talk in the other interviews is like when you do it as a job, it actually takes effort to remember how to do it just for fun. You can very quickly get lost in just doing it for work, and then you forget that like, yeah, you used to love to do this before it was just a job.
I know it's like a double-sided thing, you know, like
yeah,
it works both ways. So
okay, let's get to the layers.
Okay. So anyway, so this is like the final options, let's say, and I have another file here with the original. So I doodle a few things first. I don't always work this way, but in this case, I decided to make some faces first to see what would work best. We had already decided on the big toupee shape, you know, the long hairstyle. Yeah. So that's why there's not that much variation in that sense, because that was something that we thought would be funny. So that's something I've kept. I mean, I've varied a little bit the curves and the size slightly, but it's pretty much the same shape all over. Also, like we had discussed that we wanted like a big guy, you know, so I was just going for like a top heavy character from the start. Otherwise, if there wasn't that if we hadn't decided on that already, I would have probably played more with like those proportions as well. So the thing is, this is very disorganized, as I've told you before, the call. So I apologize beforehand, but yeah, we've discussed that. It was probably more interesting to see the real thing rather than. But if I was doing this for work, and I was telling this to Pedro the other day, if I was doing this to work, I would keep everything a lot tidier, because usually you have to share files with other people, so you want to make it easier for them, right? Or I would tidy it up after, like I would delete everything that I don't need, and then I would name each folder and so on. But this is more organic. Like I just create a new layer as I go on and everything. But anyway, so the way I start is I usually, there's this really fun tool here on Photoshop, and you just click here and you say space Elvis character, and it creates for you. It's really cool. That's how I do all of my work.
What is this?
Did you not know this?
No.
It's AI, man. It's AI on Photoshop.
Ooh.
It's built in.
Oh my god, that is tragic.
Yeah, it is pretty bad. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's just a joke.
Ooh.
So right, this is some sketch that I had done beforehand of all the characters. It's a little shit, but there it is. So anyway, we have this guy. Oh, sorry. So as I told you earlier, like I just got this up.
Like this is just a sketch, but the shape language is already mwah.
It's
Incredible
okay.
stuff.
I mean, yeah, I like certain things, and then there's things here that then get lost afterwards, which is a shame. It's always the case though. Like it's difficult to fight that. Like it's just what happens when you clean things up and then try to refine them. You usually lose a little bit of the appeal of the original sketch. But yeah, like here, I think that one of the issues is that the proportions are not all that pushed. And I mean, if you look at the final design, I think that's still there. But yeah, another thing that I discussed with my friends is that the legs here look a little bit like Buzz Lightyear, maybe too much, I guess we were referencing from him a little bit because of the spacesuit. So anyway, I had that little guy there, and I was just playing around with that.
Wow.
So yeah, these are some of the sketches. We're showing everything here.
Like you really try, like, because I would expect, okay, layers, like lines, but you really go for like, okay, you try with shape, and then you try with different color, and then you try like,
yeah,
you really explore it in like many different ways.
So these were quite quick, so I would maybe start doing some line work first, like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, in this case, I guess on this guy on the right, I think I start with the shape.
Incredible.
And I kind of like those pointy like features. But I still wanted like a chunky neck. So I think I straight away painted a face on top of that. So I was trying to come up with a few quick options. So I didn't, like I usually take a lot longer and fuzz over it a lot more. But I think on these guys, I was rather quick. So yeah, so that was that one. And this one was another one. And then this one, so yeah. So I would do this, like with a big jaw and chin.
It's
and
so organic, like the lines are so cool. Damn.
So I mean, I just paint directly on the same layers. I do the line and then I directly paint on it, with a brush. And like that feels, because it's a bit more like traditional media, it feels more natural to me to work that way rather than, but I do work the other way as well. Like I clean up if I'm doing something professionally for like a studio and there is like specific style, I would probably clean up the line and then fill in with color, with the lasso tool. rather than doing it this way, just because it's probably more efficient. They usually have to approve the concept in line art first, like that's
Right.
how it works in Brownback, for instance. But if you're doing like visual development, then you can do this. And anyway, there's like all the options, I think. So this is how all of these options started, I think. I don't know if I have the...
So many, and all of them look so cool.
You're exaggerating, man. It's okay.
No, I think you are incapable of drawing non-beautiful character designs, you know?
That is definitely not true. But thank you, Pedro. I was...
Wow. And to think
anyway.
that you did all of that to choose one, like this is to
yeah,
just
of course. I mean, you always, I mean, and these aren't that many options really. Like in our production, they make like way more options than this. You know?
Wow.
So I mean, this is like 8. Yeah, you want to have at least 10, I think.
Incredible. What's next?
So anyway, like, so I put these together. I presented them a little nicer. This is the guy with the goggles, this one.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And I mean, this one was based off that sketch that I showed you earlier.
Yeah.
I was trying to play a little bit more with it because everyone liked it more like that. And this is a couple of other options for it. And what is in here? Okay, this guy, we were playing with different color schemes.
You approved the kind of upper body face before you moved on to the full body in the character design.
Yeah, so I don't always work that way, right? But in this case, I decided to do it this way because obviously, I mean, you focus on the face, that's the most expressive part of a character. So once you have that working, everything kind of falls into place. So yeah, I think it's a good strategy, you know, because it's obviously faster to just do a face or like a torso kind of thing rather than the whole body. And then you can do less options for the body if you want to, you know.
I see, okay.
But yeah, one idea we had was like maybe because they are in outer space, maybe they are more like aliens. So we were playing with different skin colors for that matter. But
yeah.
And anyway, I thought I would present it with like a colored background instead of like pure white, just because that is probably the color that we're going to have in the short. This is not final by any means, but I just thought it'd be a better way to present it because then we can have a better perception over what is the final going to look like, you know? And then you can judge the colors based on the background as well and how they sit in against that background. I was having a little bit of that. It's a little too intense, really. But. So here is another folder with the final options, I think.
Okay, so you organize them to present them to like the rest of the
my
team.
friends. Yeah, I mean, and I do the same if I was working on production. Okay, so this guy is duplicated.
Amazing.
So this was the final kind of thing. All right, and then after I showed that to them, they all liked this one the most.
Nice.
They liked this guy too, and I think they liked which one was the other? Oh, this one. So these 3 here.
It's a difficult choice, to be honest. I don't. They're
all
pretty cool.
I mean, they're all quite similar, so I mean, it's not a big deal. So anyway, okay. I then moved on to design a full body for these 3 guys.
Now to the full body.
So we're going for the full body thing. Right. So basically, we had decided those on those 3 faces, and then I worked further on them. So I just, so that is the background kind of thing. But I really like more this is just a comment. Like I look now back at this the sketch. And I like it better than these final options personally. Like, yeah, okay, they're rendered a little bit and they have a lot of detail and so on. I mean, I think there's too much noise in them. I don't like them, you know, if I'm on the simplicity of this and the proportions are a bit more interesting. And it just gets lost, you know, on the way to finalize it. You know, it's a shame. I wish I could. But anyway, that's something I'm working on. So as you can see, I have grouped all these characters here, all those layers in the same folder. So let's go through them. It's a surprise for me to see what I'm gonna find here. It's all a mess, and also we checked the file before actually, and I realized that I must have deleted some of the sketches that I'd done for the bodies initially, so we're not gonna get to see those, unfortunately.
And why
but
did you do that?
Is because I kind of like when I like something, but I wanna tweak it or see if it would work better. Like I'm constantly iterating things in a design until I'm satisfied or until I kind of give up on trying to change it and I settle down. That's when I make a final decision. So throughout that process, I would duplicate layers many times. If I find something that I like and I want to save it for later to compare whether I improved it or I didn't, then I keep that layer and then duplicate it and work on top of that one. So by the end of it, there's like 1,000 layers on the file. And then at some point, Photoshop starts to lag a lot. So what I do is I just go through all the layers and I delete everything that I'm like, okay, I don't need this, I don't need that, So this is why we're missing like part of the process here, but I mean, I guess it's okay. So maybe I did a line sketch like this one, and then I would paint with color on top of it. I'll try to pose it as well. And then I pre-work with line on top of that color, just to make sure everything is all right. I also play a lot with these things here when I'm coloring to see because sometimes they surprise you, like you duplicate the layer with the same color. So for instance, I could duplicate this layer and then just play with these options here. And then maybe you see something that you like. And I also iterate the color with this, So when I do color on Photoshop, I play a lot with these things.
Amazing. So you start with sketch and then you use blending modes to like try things out and see if something catches your eye for the colors.
Yeah. So one thing that I really like about the blending modes, you call them, right? It's that they surprise you, So you call a little bit of that happy accident. Like maybe by using that exclusion mode, it's a completely different palette that I had thought of, So I could have gone with that.
Wow,
and then work on top of that, and then I maybe just merge both layers and start working on that or whatever, So I think that is cool. I work that way. So I think that's how this was so purple maybe, or I don't remember. But anyway, you can see I draw on top of things a lot, trying to find the right gesture, the right shapes. So in here, for instance, looking at it now, I like that more squarish torso as opposed to the final, but I settled with a more round option for some reason. But looking at the square one, I think it's more interesting. So that's the downside of it, like as you're iterating, you're making decisions. Sometimes they're not the best, but I mean, you just have to commit to something. So here's what I made that decision of making it round instead.
Amazing. I love to see just how many, because for me, the process, the decision making is quite linear. Like I do like a step forward and a step forward, but for you really try to experiment in so many different directions and on top of each other, and then different blending modes. Just such a different approach from like what I would expect. Like
I like this approach. I like your approach too, and I use that, as I was saying earlier. Like if I'm working professionally, I'm not going to do this because it takes, unless it is visual development, then I might, because it's a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more creative in a way, It's not so controlled. It's not so planned out. But the downside of it is that there is so many options, Like you can always iterate it. So it's difficult to commit to something and make decisions, So it takes longer in a way, but I mean, it depends. You can be like, okay, this is good enough, and then do something else, and this has taken you maybe 10, 20 minutes. I don't know.
Amazing.
So yeah, here I was like, sometimes when I'm coloring, I just color on top of it, like with a brush instead of like filling with the lasso tool. And I add a little bit of shading as well. I sometimes render that way, and then you can change things. And here I flattened it out. It's a mess. My process is a mess.
It's funny because like now you are opening the layers one at a time, and I can see your decisions being made. But when you were showing me with the Photoshop, you just opened all of them at one time. So I just saw like 50 different character designs in the screen. Yeah. So it makes a lot more sense now. Like, okay, this is why you kept duplicating it and then iterating and iterating.
Yeah, exactly. So here, for instance, I was like, it's what I was explaining before. So I was like, what if I make his neck a little longer and his face longer overall, to push that shape of the head, So I just duplicated that. And I use the lasso tool and I transform that with warp or whatever, or liquify. Sometimes I use liquify a lot. And then I just compare the two. So I moved, that's why this one is on the left. Because sometimes, I mean, you can switch it on and off and you can see the change.
Little animation, nice.
But if you put it next to each other, you can see it as well. So that's why it is on the left. Nice. And I definitely like this one better. I think it was a good decision in that case. But yeah, that's how I make decisions. I compare. I don't know if I don't compare. That's one of the hardest things about designing. Is like you're never certain. Like you're always like half blind. That you can't see. And then you step off the screen for like a week, go back to the design, and you're like, "What the fuck was I thinking of?"
Amazing. Such a refreshing way to look at it. It's really not. My process is really not as organic as that, and I think. You can see like your drawings really feel super organic. That's probably
so. So I mean, I think that comes from liking more traditional. On the other hand, I think if you're working traditionally, you would probably be a little faster in a way than working this way digitally, because traditionally you only have so many tries you can have or at one piece. Like you can make so many changes as here. You can. This is never ending, like in Photoshop, you can just like always go back so yeah, it's a little bit of,
yeah. Okay.
A little crazy,
And what's after?
Yeah, that character, still, I don't know what I was doing here. Maybe pushing a little bit more the height. There's something with the hip there that is not working well, I don't think. I don't know if I kept that in the final design or I tried to fix it a little bit. But yeah, just adjusting little things, and I think I probably settled on this one, and then I was like, okay, it's time to finish it. I already had like a multiply layer to add a bit of shade in there, and then I was like maybe adding a little bit more light to it, and a bit more. So I was there in the rendering phase, so I had already settled for this design. But even at this point, if I went away from the screen for a little bit and then I came back, I would have still changed things,
Do you mind zooming in, covering the screen a little bit more so I can, because now we're getting quite detailed. I want to think.
Yeah, sorry. I should have done that before, probably. I keep thinking this sketch that I have here is more interesting. I don't know.
You kept bugging you this sketch. Every iteration you did, that sketch was right next to you being like, are you sure this is not better?
Yeah, I think I was having a little bit of detail there and I think I was already working on top of this. But anyway, in the final, I've changed the color of the background because it's definitely too saturated, And then you've got some of those colors here. So I don't think it was a good decision to have that background. I always like to add a little bit of noise on top of it. So again, I would duplicate the full character. I would merge all the layers together, and then I would add noise. You can also just add another layer and clip it to your character layer. But yeah, I just merge everything and add noise, and maybe I delete it, like I erase it in some areas. Like here, if you zoom in, you can see here I had some noise there. I didn't have any noise. Yeah, I don't know what else is there. I kept changing things. Anyway, so that guy was this guy, right? And you can see I've changed it quite a lot. So, but I mean, the essence is there. It's the same stupid nose, same goofy eyes, and I like that expression of biting of his lower lip.
Yeah.
But I try to push the hair shape a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
Everything, you know. So
yeah, the shapes are all much more like pushed.
I did like the thick neck though. Like I kept that.
Yeah.
And then this guy. So now I look at it and I am like, there is way too much information on his costume, you know, there is way too much stuff in there. So I don't like this guy at all. But anyway, here it is.
But so this is this like you are giving your opinion about the design now or after you finished it, or that's like you mean you don't like this guy, like you finished it, but now you look at it and you're like, okay, I could have done better.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's my. But it's okay, you know, there are things here that I like, but I think there's way too much information. So you're not really focusing on the face. The audience is not looking at his face because there's way too much stuff going on his body. But anyway, let's go over him and the layers and see if it was any better. So here you go, you know, I like this better, you know. So I lost it. So that happens many times. So I don't know if you agree with this, but I think even the shapes of the feet, they were more pushed. You know, like I think the more pointy shape of the feet were better. Even the face was more interesting. You know, and when I started that in the rendering, I think that's where it got completely lost. I think there is way too much noise in here, you know. And if you just switch off that, it already looks much better. So I think, yeah. But anyway, you sometimes make these bad decisions, you know, like it's okay.
I love the character design. I'm just baffled. Like I get like you are very strict on yourself and you're very demanding of yourself, but like, I mean.
Yeah, but you see it too, right? Don't you think this is stronger?
Huh?
Don't you think this is stronger as well?
I think like the sketch has a certain looseness and a certain movement that you usually lose when you render it. And I think that's obviously not in the final render, but I know, because I also do sketches and I also render them, I know that it's not something that is just part of the process to kind of lose a little bit of that sketchiness, a little bit of that. I feel like the boldness of the lines leaves a certain ambiguity that looks nicer because it's not so certain, but you have to make a lot of decisions as you render, and then that ambiguity gets lost.
That's a big, you know, like I feel like I would like to find a way, because this sketch as it is right now, it's a little too loose, you know. But I'd like to find a way to just tidy it up and refine it just enough, you know.
Yeah.
To not lose the essence, but like have it look professional and presentable. That would be ideal, because this is also much quicker, you know. So then you can do all other options as well. But anyway, little by little, you know, I'm still learning. That's why I'm taking courses. But even here, you can see that I made the hips much thicker.
Yeah.
And that is a bad decision, because then the proportions are less. There's less contrast, you know, between the big torso and the skinny hips. So yeah, I think I made some decisions that weren't good. But that's now that I'm looking at it in retrospective, you know. And when you're working on it, sometimes, as I am saying, like you don't have like a clear view of what you're doing, and you just make wrong decisions. But
what about the other character designs?
Other options, you mean?
Similar? Because I remember there were like 4 of them. Do you feel similar about them?
I think this was my least favorite. And I mean, we decided on this guy in the end. Also, we haven't decided on the colors yet. You know, that's probably something that might change in the future. The reason I was going with such white color was because if it's going to sit against this background that is a bit more purple, white would pop way more. So that's one of the reasons I went with white from the beginning. Also because I was referencing some of Elvis's suits.
Yeah.
And it was something like this with a little bit of golden color as well. And I thought that could look cool. But yeah, we might iterate that in the final, you know. So there's no final, but we've settled on this design. Also, the proportions and so on might change because it's going to be like a 2D animation. So we might push that a little bit more.
Wow. I can't to imagine this guy in movement. That's gonna be
Yeah,
amazing.
it's very cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. But that guy that you end up going for, he looks closer to the sketch that you said was your favorite sketch, or
This
maybe.
one. Yeah, and this is why I am happier with this one. It's because I think I pushed it to a better place. You know,
Yeah.
and I can open the other one if you want, just to compare. So you can see all the essence on the final on the left is there from the original sketch. As I told you before, like we had said that the legs of this initial sketch reminded us a little bit too much of Buzz Lightyear. So I think that's why I decided to make him a little skinnier and pointier, just to steer away from that. But everything else is here, and yeah, I mean, there are definitely plenty of things that I don't like about this design. Like, for instance, how repetitive this pattern here on the shoulder pads is. I think it feels a little boring, or like the colors I'm not so sold on. But I think the proportions are, I mean, it's definitely an improvement from the original sketch. So I personally do like where I got this design to, So yeah, I mean, you can see the hips are way narrower, he's slightly taller so I'm pushing that proportion from the height of the legs to make the torso a shorter shape.
Yeah.
And all that, so you want to create that contrast. I push the neck as well, that bull's neck, a lot more, so yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a stronger design. That doesn't mean I'm super happy with it, but so I was trying to push the pose as well. I was referencing from an Elvis image, I think, or somebody else, like one of these guys that dress up as Elvis.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is obviously not. This is something that I painted on top of a sketch, right? But I've lost the sketch again.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is the original thing, and then I got into this, pushing the shapes and the pose and so on. I was tweaking the colors mostly here, I think, and cleaning up a little bit more. Yeah, and I was looking at this face that I had done as well. So I was trying to push the angle of the head, I was trying to tilt it back a little bit because I thought that would add a bit more appeal. But yeah, I didn't think it was working as well as this one. So I think in the final, I just used that face as it was, So I kind of pasted this face on top of that body, and I went with this. And then I was trying different options for those goggles on its head, because I was
nice.
rolled on it, So yeah, you make those iterations. So I mean, I kind of like those are sleeker, but I think I liked more the thinner line. So I mean, that's what I settled on. And then another thing I did is I decided this was way too much information here on the legs because they're quite thin. So I tried to take that out, and I think it definitely helps. I have a problem. I usually I've seen this in other artists as well. Like I am tempted to add in more detail everywhere, and you really need to find a balance to harmonize, and direct the eye of the viewer whatever you want it to be, So if you add everything with detail, like the other option that I showed you earlier, then the viewer doesn't know where to look at, So you need to guide a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think design is way more successful if you manage to find the right balance of areas with detail that are more complex and areas that are a little simpler. So that is very important, and I'm still working on that myself. And yeah, I mean, here I was just adding some color and
nice.
But yeah, I think that's it, because this is the final.
The final guy. Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, I think I could still, if I was to touch this up, and you'll probably change that on the final. Also, because as I was telling you, it's like gonna be 2D animated. So probably all this detail on the shoulder pads and so on. I mean, the reason I added that is because I was referencing from like old astronaut suits, and they have all these lines. So But yeah, I think they could be a little bit more fun, or maybe not so not noticeable. Like I think there's a lot of rendering here that I could lose for sure. But yeah,
Amazing.
so yeah, this is the final design, and that's it. I don't know if you have any questions or anything else that you'd like me to show or talk about.
That's the final design. Well, it's. I think it's just a very interesting way to see how you finished. You pretty much fully finished 3 designs, even though you're only gonna pick like one. You really took them to like such a nice extent.
I mean, if this was for a CG show or for a feature, you might have to do like a more rendered final, but you wouldn't do that over these options, So this is enough render for
someone to decide
this stage, there's enough render here. But yeah.
Amazing. Super cool. Like it's really incredible. Like when I was first seeing the layers, I didn't really understand the process. We were just looking at the layers, if you're gonna have them on, if they're gonna have them off. But now like seeing all the different iterations and seeing like how you make decisions is such an eye-opening thing. I mean, I've been looking at your character design since we met, but I didn't know that this was how you made the decisions. It's really
it's a very chaotic process, as you can see.
Very.
Organic, but this is mostly how I work on my personal work, As I was saying earlier, if I was to work for a production, or I would stay more organized. Obviously, you have to share with your art director what you're doing, so they're gonna give you notes. So I have the thing there is that because it's not just me making decisions, I find it easier to finish stuff. Not fuzzier, but because I am fuzzy at work as well, and I try to keep a high level. But I am way more indecisive, let's say, when I'm working on personal work.
Interesting.
Because I am my own art director.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly, I suck as an art director, man. You don't want to have me.
But yeah, Dani, thank you so much for this. Has been like a really amazing like window into your process. And do you want to, the camera is pointing at you. Tell us what's going on in your life. Tell us how you can find you, projects going on. Tell us everything.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just in my life right now. It's all going great. This has been a little difficult year in terms of projects. Everything was a little uncertain, because the industry is not at its best. But now I'm doing better because Lorcana seems to be asking me to do more stuff for them, which is great.
Amazing.
And also my previous studio, they reached out. So
Nice.
Maybe I'll be working with them in the future. We'll see. So hopefully, fingers crossed that this happens.
Super cool. And how can people find you?
Yeah, well, I'm not very active on social media. So if you go on my Instagram, I have deleted everything. I got really pissed off at Meta for their policies on AI and how they were like saying that they were going to use all of the users' pictures on training their AIs. And I deleted mine. It wasn't like it's going to make a difference. I know this is stupid, but I was just annoyed and I deleted everything. But I should start posting again. So anyway, I don't know if you will be able to add my Instagram name.
Yeah, I'll add a handle.
Yeah. So you can do that. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. This was Daniel Rodriguez, and the other names that are in the middle that we don't know, the mysterious names. And I'll see you guys in our next episode of Layer Explorer. Take care.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Bye.